Rick, the superintendent of Jefferson County Public Schools, once again apologizing to every family in the district for the first day busing debacle. Dr. Marty Polio claiming short-term adjustments have been made to keep kids safe and get them home at a decent time. Parents we talked with say they aren't confident JCPS has its transportation issues figured out. At tonight's packed meeting, even a student stood up to chastise the school board and superintendent for their part in the bus routing disaster. Bailey Kaiser is a sophomore at Ballard High School. She let the JCPS school board know they've got to do better.
As all of you know, the last student got home on the first day at nearly 10 o'clock. And as a student myself, I can say that this is absolutely unacceptable and that every single JCPS family deserves to have their child home before they eat dinner.
Among the students dropped off by a JCPS bus after dinner was Elizabeth Brammel's son. He's starting the second grade. Brammel came to let the school board know about the anxiety she had to deal with on the first day of school.
And he didn't get home till after 7 o'clock. And it was horrible because I had no clue where he was. I could not get through to the school board or the compound in my area to get a hold of him. And he bus compounds from a school downtown. And it was disastrous. I was full-blown panic mode. And that's the biggest thing, that they need to fix this.
And it wasn't just the young kids. Amy Kiefer is the mother of a JCPS senior. Kiefer says because his bus never showed up, he couldn't get to school on the first day.
I waited with him. I was going a half hour late. We waited 45 minutes for his bus. Didn't show up. I told him give it another 25. I went on to work. I get all the way downtown. He calls me. I'm home. No bus.
During the board meeting, Dr. Polio described changes made to make sure buses run on time when school reopens later this week. Some parents, like Liddell Miranda, say they'll wait and see.
If this isn't fixed or if nothing is figured out officially, even with the extra vans and buses, there's going to be a mess. It's going to be the same mess over again, and then they're going to be starting back at square one when it first happened.
Other parents we spoke to agree with the superintendent and school board on one issue. That's the need to increase bus driver pay to attract more drivers, which all sides agree would go a long way to solving the JCPS transportation crisis. Reporting live in the studio tonight, Randall Cam, WOKY News.
Well, there you go. Jefferson County Public School System. The bus routes, it's a train wreck, no pun intended. I guess a bus wreck, but it is a huge mess.
Yep.
And parents all over this county are just livid, and they should be.
As they should be.
They absolutely should be. The disruption that's caused to, first of all, the education to these children. Secondly, the lives of these parents. It is just, it's unforgivable, honestly. This type of mistake, this type of just huge systematic error should point to a major overhaul of how we do education in this county and in the state. And before we go any further, let me just introduce our audience. You're watching the station, Kentucky's Conservative Outpost, and we're at the Kentucky State Fair. And I've got my co-host Bob Scott and our special guest Jim Waters here today to discuss this issue and many others. And so join if you see a lot of folks coming by and watching behind us. That's why we're at the State Fair. So. Public schools, I mean, there's a list anybody can create about how dysfunctional they are and why we really need to move away from a public school system. But this just really highlights it. We're a national laughingstock because we cannot get our buses to arrive on time. We've been doing this for 50, 60 years, right. Bus routes, without any flaws. And then So Jim, just unpack this a bit. What happened? First of all, what is going on?
Well, this is a huge school system. They have a $2 billion budget every year, and yet when school began this year, they weren't ready. Bottom line, it was incompetent. But where's the accountability going to come from? If parents don't have any options here, what are they going to do about it? We had young kids, first and second graders, being dropped off at the wrong location. And they weren't English-speaking kids, some of them.
Wow.
I mean, we're fortunate here that it wasn't worse than just children
Child
being
welfare-
dropped off
welfare
late at
issues
night.
didn't- yeah,
and you can
right.
imagine what that would have looked like.
Yeah.
But, basically what we have here is a $2 billion organization being run by a high school principal, and it's being overseen by a board collectively that hasn't ever run much of anything.
Right.
What needs to happen here, first of all, in Jefferson County, because what happens here affects our state. This is our largest city. This is our economic driver. And
Our largest school system.
And what we've got some specific steps that need to be taken here. One is this district is too big, and it wouldn't matter who's managing it. You could have a 2-star general, which, by the way, they did down in Washington, D.C. a few years ago. And Lieutenant General Julius Wesley Beckton was his name, famous incident now. But I mean, here's a guy who had commanded combat troops, and that school district was so big and so bureaucratic and such a failure that it chewed him up and spit him out. And when they finally got choices for parents, and when they finally got options, is when things began to improve and people began to have some liberty and choices.
Right.
A few years ago, Tom, our state auditor, who was a Democrat, Adam Elan, audited this school district, and he clearly concluded that the current structure is incapable of running this district because of all these issues.
Right.
So one of the issues here is this district needs to be broken up into smaller districts. We've got 100,000 kids. We could have 3 or 4 districts. We could have 4 districts of 25,000 kids apiece, which would be much more in line with what many of our school districts are. Have someone responsible for them and give parents a passport.
I mean, short of school choice, short of assuming we still need a public school system, right? The answer right now would be just to break up the one large system we have.
But there's also an element of choice that can be introduced here.
That's right.
And that is give parents a passport. Let them pick any school in any of those districts. If they live in the Jefferson County district now, they could pick the school that's best for their child. We've been busing kids across the city for years to the East End. The biggest gaps we have in our academic numbers and performance are in the East End schools. The white students are doing better. They've made improvement. But the black students and minority students are being transported out there across town. Now we see very incompetently have bore the brunt of this. And that's who usually does bear the brunt, or the families that are lower income and don't have many options.
Right.
But if we just did that, we gave parents that option of picking one of those districts. That way, if they wanted their child to go to a school closer to their home, they wouldn't maybe be on the bus as much, or maybe not at all. Yeah. Maybe the parents could take them, or maybe they could walk to school, whatever it might be.
Right.
But that's one of the things that needs to happen here, and it's a bureaucratic heavy system. I mean, we've got somebody down at the central office assigning kids to which school they're going to go to. But let me ask you this. Who do you think knows better where a child should be educated?
That's right.
Is it the parent
or
is
some
it the
bureaucrat?
assignment?
Yeah,
a bureaucrat down at the central office.
Bob, I hate to go back to this far back, but I'm thinking, we almost have like a planned economy here. We're almost like this communist state where the commissar, the Politburo is laying out, okay, this kid needs to go there, and the government and the state knows better what's for you than you can. Surely, it's just having a large bureaucratic government system like this that runs something as delicate as important and as a school system, it is. What are we thinking? Why are we doing
this? It's a utopian fantasy. Is what it is. They, and it really did begin back in the '60s, if not a little bit before that. And unfortunately, it spread, and now we're seeing the result. We're reaping the results. And what you said is true.
Well, we've had public school systems even before the '60s.
Of course.
It's just, but I think the way we operate.
I'm just saying the ideology.
Yeah, right. I see. Sure.
Well,
right.
But we've got a lot of public schools who weren't getting their kids home at 10 o'clock at night, right?
That's true. Yeah.
And they figured this out.
Some can operate.
They
have been operating well.
And certainly when you talk about ideology, I mean, there are some public schools in conservative areas that are not fighting with parents and not fighting their values.
Right.
But that's why we need to have options. If I send my child to a public school that's working for me and I'm okay with it, I should have that option.
defend democracy.
Misinformation poses a threat to our nation's health.
Climate change is an emergency.
Democratic socialism.
Codify one's right to choose.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15.
The Louisville Metro Council has a budget that's less than half of what the school district's budget is.
Really?
$2 billion.
The Metro
and
Council
they have
itself.
like, what is it, 30?
Yeah, 30, right. Metro
we have
Council
7 members on the school board. 7 members.
Wow.
And what that needs to at least, I think, be doubled when you're talking about this size of an organization.
Yeah.
So, and that would be an opportunity for other philosophies,
other voices,
more conservative voices, some new voices. I mean, these are all incumbents. Now, they won in this election because of big spending by the teachers' unions and by those who have who care more about maintaining power and control and the money than they do about the kids' education.
Exactly.
Well, here's what needs to happen, and I would encourage the campaigns that are campaigning right now, our gubernatorial campaign on the Republican side, to really step out there and focus on students rather than the system. You know, I've heard a lot from both sides about the system, about the adults, about the teachers, and I'm not anti-public school teacher. We've got, I think, a lot of teachers, a lot of Christian teachers and conservatives who are who want to do the right thing, but they're in a system that's failing.
That's right.
And so the way to change that, one of the ways is to ask the question on all education policy that we pass and approve is, does this help our students achieve a higher level of academic achievement so that they're better prepared for life? I mean, we have a responsibility to do that. And also, we're going to be bringing in a new education commissioner, and this is a great opportunity. And Governor Beshear ought to step up and talk about what he's looking for and what the Board of Education is looking for in a new commissioner, because that person can have a tremendous amount of influence, just like the candidates can on this issue. So those are some things that we think need to happen in Jefferson County.
Jim, I knew you're the right guest to have on the show on a lot of your policy studies here. So I'm really glad to have you on this. And it brings back, just generally, if you look at what a public school system is supposed to do, and you touched on this, it should be a public school system. So everybody should have some input on how it's ran, and it should be something that's fluid enough to, adjust to the different concerns of appearance. But our system is not. And there's, I think you touched on 2 key areas. One being there's not enough, school board members. So you have sort of an ossified, group of folks that have a certain ideology, a certain worldview, and the parents don't really get to challenge that, or if you have a minority view in this city, then you're kind of stuck with it. And then you also have this huge teachers union that has so much power over the system that the parents are really left without much of a say. And so you got this teachers union influenced and almost ran public school system, and then you have these 7 council public school board members that if they have one worldview or another, it's counter to what you believe, then you're just kind of stuck. That's too inflexible of a system. It is not the right way to operate education in this country, and it's so overdue for change. So overdue.
And we missed, the students in Jefferson County missed a number of days at the beginning of this year. Right. And I was out on Bardstown Road driving by the Catholic school out there. Yeah. The Christian schools were in session.
That's right.
The Catholic schools were in, the all Christians, all faith-based schools, all private schools were in session. And our kids are already behind, many of them. I mean, so they're already behind the 8 ball. Now, what I think a reasonable question for the board, for the superintendent, who's ultimately responsible, being paid $350,000 a year, more than the governor,
That's
almost
right.
twice as much. Is I think it's a reasonable question to say what happened. We need to know how this happened.
That's right. Let's unpack
because you
this,
had all summer to prepare for this. You know. But the other thing I was going to say is,
listen, and no one will lose their job for this. This is not the way the public school system works. You could be a complete failure.
Well,
you cannot teach a single thing to a child, and that teacher will never get fired.
But
so
Tom,
I said,
according to the
do you
teachers
expect
union,
accountability in this situation?
According to the teachers unions, there aren't any failing teachers.
Oh, that's
failing
right. There are no.
That's why.
That's right.
One of the ideas we had was, let's take our best teachers and put them in failing schools, pay them more, offer them higher pay. And the unions, they didn't care about the students. It was all about the system.
Right.
We are here to defend democracy.
Misinformation poses a threat to our nation's health.
Climate change is an emergency.
Democratic socialism.
Codify women's right to choose.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15.
Tom, I can take you to charter schools in this country where it's the students who will tell you what's great about this school, why I like to come here, why I look forward to coming to school. Are our kids in Jefferson County looking forward to going to school and learning? Is that happening? Is that the environment? Is it safe? Now, what you're going to hear from the other side is, well, if the legislature would just fund us and give us more funding. But
How much more money do they need?
I got to make this point, though, on that. It's not just that general question, which is the right question. And they'll never answer it, by the way. Ask them, give me a figure. Right now, we're spending $17,000, $18,000 per pupil. And you're telling me that's not enough to get them to school, teach them, and get them home safely. That's what we're talking about.
Imagine what kind of private school we could build with $17,000 in tuition. I mean, if you, per student.
Right. But the other thing is the legislature, and I want to give a shout out to our legislators here, because first of all, they're operating with a governor who's been opposed to a lot of their policies, and they have stepped up. They've overridden his vetoes over 50 times, which is significant for public policy here in Kentucky. But one of those was the budget issue. They had a big debate over this. But let's not forget, this legislature has increased funding to local school districts by record amounts in at least the last 2 budget cycles. Now, what's going on here is the legislature is not telling the local school districts what they have to do with those extra dollars. And that's the right way. They should allow the local districts to make the decisions for their district that are best. So if they want to use it for teacher raises, or here's one for you. One of the reasons why we had the busing fiasco, we were told, was a lack of bus drivers. Well, where is the common sense here to take some of those extra dollars and offer it as incentives for to hire bus drivers to come and make sure this doesn't happen, right? So that's but now you might go to a small rural district where that's not an issue. Maybe what they need in a rural district is more advanced placement classes or more biology or more physics. So they can take their extra dollars that the legislature increased and maybe find a great physics teacher or create another opportunity for students. There again, it's about students. For Jefferson County, if they need to, they're already the highest paid teachers in the state, but if they needed to bring in someone in some particular area, or they needed to pay bus drivers more, or whatever. Now, this left-wing group out there, the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy, is running around saying that the legislature did not raise teachers' pay. See, this is very deceptive. It's very deceptive.
So that calls my bus to be
They gave
late.
money to the local districts to use for teacher pay if they wanted to.
Oh, that's right.
And there's another reason why that's the right way, because teachers work for the districts, not the state.
The state.
They work for the local districts.
That's right.
And each one has their own pay scale and pay salaries. So let's not be fooled here by the misinformation, by the myths, because something fits a narrative. Let's be about the facts here. Let's get it right. And the thing is, it's not a money problem. It's not a funding problem. It's an accountability problem.
Accountability issue.
It's a transparency problem, and it's a lack of what almost every other state in this country has, and that is educational freedom and liberty.
That's right. We need to put the market forces in place to fix education, and school choice. You touched on that as a major factor, but also giving that those grants to each district where they can spend it how they need to spend it. That's the right approach. You want flexibility and more more dynamic thinking in that sense. And Bob, and we've had shows on this in the past about why public school systems are not good for students and parents, just from the cultural issues, such as if you have a worldview that's being taught by a school district that says we're all going to teach about pride today, pride flags today. Actually, we're going to hang a pride flag in the public school room because our district celebrates the transgender movement or whatever, and we just don't have a consensus on those issues culturally anymore. And so it's hard to even fathom how you can operate a public school system when we have such division on issues such as that. We can't agree on what a boy or a girl is, then how can you even have a school system, public school system? So I always err on the side of let's just roll back as far as we can from the public system and start introducing school choice, and let parents send kids to where they to a school system or a school that matches their worldview.
At the end of the day, there needs to be obviously more accountability with regard to it, because whether your kid goes to a private school, Christian school like my children have now, my oldest son is a senior at UK. The bottom line is we are paying the taxes for them to attend not the private school, but the public school, whether they're going there or not. So we should take an active role, and I'm talking, when I'm saying we, the folks that have kids in private school, we still should be concerned about what's going on, because at the end of the day,
and if you don't have kids, because your taxes
of course, if you don't have kids, and that's my whole point. And Jim was talking very eloquently about the problem where things have gotten completely out of hand, and we've seen what's happened here in Louisville is a prime example of that. It's got to be reeled in.
It does. And I just beg the viewers in our district, in our county, to take this moment, take this opportunity. This crisis is an opportunity for us. Take the frustration that you feel about your child sitting at a bus stop for 2 or 3 extra hours. I want you to take that frustration and focus it on something that can really fix the problem, which is let's push for school choice. Let's get these reforms that Jim mentioned applied to the public school systems. This system is so dysfunctional, and it's not going to get better because it's getting bigger. And the bigger something gets, the more unwieldy it gets, and less it can serve people at the granular level. So we need to break it up and introduce school choice, and then you'll have a wonderful option for your child. So please take that energy, take that frustration. Let's fix it the right way, like what all these other states around us have done.
Well, Ken, I don't know how much time
we're out of time, but I mean, everybody else has school choice practically.
Right, 45 other states have public charter schools. That's a public option.
Yeah, there we go.
And the teachers unions are fighting that tooth and nail here. Yeah. And a majority of states have the opportunity for parents who may not have the income to write the check to a non-public school or private or Christian school to get a scholarship, a tax credit scholarship. And you will hear in this next year, because there's going to be a push for a constitutional amendment. Maybe we can talk about that on the show. But there's going to be a push. There's going to be a lot of this. What you're going to hear is this. Well, hey, if they have the means to do it, fine, but I don't want to help them. And that goes back to what you said. We are our brother's keeper. And the Christians in this state must understand that we have a responsibility, whether you have kids in public school. We have 150,000 job openings here that we don't have qualified workers for. We need to fill that. We have an economy that's depending on this. We have a future that's depending on this.
Exactly
so
right. This isn't just an academic theory.
You're going to hear unbelievable lack of empathy and concern by the left. They're going to say, well, hey, you still need to pay your taxes even if you think this system's failing, and we're not going to help you send your child to a better school. That's not going to fly with Bluegrass Institute. I know that. So I don't think it's going to fly here either.
Right.
So
good stuff. Okay, well, we're out of time. Thank you for watching. Like I said, take that energy and let's really affect some change on this problem. And we're going to go get a funnel cake, I think. It's the station from the Kentucky State Fair. And thank you for watching.